What is going on, Bengals fans? Chris Daughtry here with another edition of Bengals Breakdown. Coming up on today's show, Paul Dehner Jr. listing 3 different position groups that the Cincinnati Bengals will probably see some movement in after last week's game against the Philadelphia Eagles. Before we get into those specific 3 position groups, though, I want to hear from you guys down in the comment section of today's video. What position group are you most worried about on this Cincinnati Bengals roster? Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section of today's video. All right, the first position group that you are most likely going to see some movement on this week is that safety position. Obviously, you've got an injury right now to Geno Stone. We'll see exactly how long he's going to be out for, but with an older guy, it's probably not the worst thing in the world that he's not going out there every single day for, training camp, going and doing those things. He knows the process. So, he's got a hamstring injury right now. That's going to be week to week for him. And look, at the end of the day, hamstring injuries are very tricky. You might think that you're going to be good to go, but then you come back a little bit too fast and you re-aggravate it, maybe even injure it a little bit worse. And at the end of the day, you could be out a little bit longer. But when I was in high school, I injured my hamstring, thought I was going to be good after a week, and then I was running bases, rounded second, popped it again, and then I was out for a month. So that exact same thing could happen if you go out there and you try to come back too fast from those injuries. But it is the preseason right now, so it's not that big of an issue that your starter at safety is going to be out for a couple of weeks. That gives an opportunity for some of those younger guys, some of those backups to play a little bit more in the preseason. That is during games, and that is, during practice as well. During last week's game, you saw Daijan play 25 snaps for the Bengals, and then you also saw Tycen Anderson play 29 snaps for the Bengals. I don't think the guys were, terrible by any means at that safety spot, but he definitely could get a little bit better. And Zac Taylor, saying this past week to the media as well that it's just a good opportunity for those guys to get some more looks here. Zac Taylor also continuing talking about the Bengals safeties as well, saying they're just going to continue to get a lot of opportunities, certainly with Geno being out. So I think that it is a good chance to really see where they're at in their development. They've got to contribute on special teams. They've got to prove that they can walk in there and help us on defense as well. Those are guys that for these next 6 practices, it's going to will be really, really good for them. So let me know down at the pinned comment of today's video, do the Bengals need to make a roster move at safety? I'll explain why here in just a second. Do they need to add a player? Let me know what you guys think. Type Y for yes or N for no down at the pinned comment of today's video. All right, so Paul Dehner Jr., the reason I asked that question is he kind of suggested that as a possibility for the Bengals here at that safety spot, saying Taylor mentioned an underrated element to this entire quandary. Sure, you would consider adding a veteran like Justin Simmons, who despite turning 32 this season has 124 NFL starts. Is that repeating mistake made in signing Von Bell from last year? Perhaps. The Bengals could look into a trade or a waiver wire addition at final cuts for that position as well. Dehner continuing here saying that the Bengals, the bigger problem is that the player likely wouldn't be replacing Geno Stone when he comes back in a couple of weeks. The backup safeties would need to do more than play special teams, and in the eyes of coordinator Darren Simmons, they would need to be great. I do think that is a really good point there by Paul Dehner Jr. on the Von Bell situation from last year. The Bengals added Bell last year at that safety spot, and, they wanted him to be a stopgap option for Jordan Battle, I think, just to see his development continue. But, he wasn't awful, but he wasn't really a game changer for the Bengals either last season. And, you don't have him anymore. You have Geno Stone and you have Jordan Battle there. Those are most likely going to be your 2 starters at that safety position. He's going to be out, the addition if the Bengals were to go after somebody like Justin Simmons. Really the only difference in Justin Simmons from what he did in 2024 to what Von Bell did in 2024 was the fact that Justin Simmons had a couple more pass breakups, but at the end of the day, like Zac Taylor said, those guys, whoever, if they go out and they sign somebody else, they're going to also have to contribute on special teams, and they're not just going to have to be okay special teams additions. They're going to have to be really, really good special teams additions. I don't think Justin Simmons is going to play or would want to play special teams for the Bengals. So it's up to those younger guys like we talked about in Daijan Anthony and Tycen Anderson to really step up this week as they go into week 2 of the NFL preseason. All right, we'll continue on with 2 more position groups here in just a second. But if you guys are in need of a new game day polo, you can get this one today. It is on sale. It was $85 on sale now for just $53. All you got to do is go to chatsports.com/Bengals polo. I'll put that link down at the pinned comment as well as the 3rd paragraph of the description of today's video. But this is on sale now. I don't know when the season starts, if it's going to go back up to $85. So if you need a new Bengals polo, you might as well get it now. Was $85 on sale now for only $53. Just go to chatsports.com/Bengals polo to get that polo today. All right, the next position group here from Paul Daijan Jr. was the offensive line. Daijan mentioned, the rough nights from Jalen Rivers and Cody Ford in that game against the Philadelphia Eagles. Rivers allowed a sack in that game. Cody Ford allowed multiple pressures as well. And, the Bengals this week at practice have actually flip-flopped those guys at their position group. They put Jalen Rivers at that guard spot, and they put Cody Ford back over there to the right tackle position. And last season, the Bengals put Cody Ford at the left tackle spot when Orlando Brown Jr. went down. So they know he is capable of playing that tackle spot, but they would love to figure out, if one of those 2 tackles goes down in Amarius Mims or Orlando Brown, who's going to, be a solid backup for them at those 2 position groups. This is what Dan Pitcher, the Bengals offensive coordinator, said about just them shuffling the offensive line this week at practice. He said, we're still very much in the discovery process of what that room is going to look like. Obviously, Cody Ford filled the role for us last year. He did a really good job. We were able to win a lot of football games and score a lot of points with Cody playing out there. He has value in that role. Is that ultimately going to be or end up where his role is? We have not decided that yet. We are going to mix and match and use every ounce of last 7 competition practices and 2 games to make that decision. So, that's not the most unusual thing in the world for, during training camp and, the preseason and whatnot, for them to kind of just mix and match some of these different guys around. Versatility is a big, big thing that all, not just NFL teams, all football teams in general really do covet. So we'll see what happens on that offensive line when it comes to shuffling some of those guys around. Make sure you guys are subscribed right here to Bengals Breakdown. We're going to be doing as many watch parties as we possibly can. Obviously, Stone is not here anymore, so we're still trying to figure some things out. I might possibly be your host here in the future, but we're just going to have to see. You guys have an opportunity to let your voices be heard. Show the bosses that you guys want us to be live for every single Bengals football game. Hit that sub button right now so I can show the bosses that is something that you guys definitely want. All right, the last position group here is at the wide receiver position. Obviously, you know what you got in the first couple of guys there, but after really your first 3 wide receivers, there's a little bit of competition going on. Jermaine Burton did not practice on Sunday. They had a early morning practice. He was out there on Saturday, but then was not out there on Sunday. And that sparked a lot of theories and apparently false reporting, according to Jermaine Burton, about why he might have missed practice. Jermaine Burton actually posted this on Twitter earlier this morning, saying several posts and headlines have circulated regarding my absence from the field yesterday. Unfortunately, some of those reports admitted important context, leading to false assumptions about my commitment and my character. To be clear, my absence was due to injury, not for any other reason. Any suggestion otherwise is just simply untrue. You guys can read the rest of that there. But, obviously we know the saga of Jermaine Burton from last year, whether that was, sleeping during meetings or getting evicted or, the other stuff that he was involved in as well that, we've talked about a lot here on the channel. Not going to dive too much more into that. But I will say it does seem like Jermaine Burton is trying to do better. He's trying to stay a little bit more focused than he was last year, trying to be a professional. That's something Joe Burrow talked about last year in regards to Jermaine Burton as well. Just, look, this isn't college football anymore. You are a professional. This is your job. You have to show up. You have to stay awake during meetings, and you can't skip walkthroughs either. So, obviously Jermaine saying that this, missing of practice was due to an injury. So, we'll see what happens there. But in my opinion, it does seem like Jermaine Burton is trying to at least do some more of the right things being on an NFL football team. This is what Dan Pitcher said about Jermaine Burton as well. He said he didn't have a lot of opportunity to show his playmaking ability the other night. The single word I keep coming back to with Jermaine is just consistency. You don't get a lot of opportunity on the other night. How do we respond? How do we go about your day-to-day professional job? That's what's going to continue to be the emphasis for him. Now, when you look at this wide receiver room currently right now in the preseason for the Cincinnati Bengals, you have Jamar Chase, you have T. Higgins, you have Andre Yosipos. 100%, those are your guys. Everybody throws Mike Gesicki in there too. He's a tight end, so I'm not going to include him on this right now. But, who is actually going to be your fourth and fifth wide receivers on this team? I kind of think right now, Charlie Jones, he's struggled with injuries, but I love his playmaking ability as well. I think him and Jermaine Burton, talent-wise, are kind of on the same level right here. Both guys can provide some return value for you as well. You saw the other night, Jermaine Burton had a really nice punt return where he forced a couple missed tackles as well. I think it was like for 30, 32 yards, something like that. So, it all might come down to who are they going to trust more to stay healthy and just to do the right things at the end of the day. I think if you were to ask most people, I think Charlie Jones is probably the guy that you would trust more to do the right things, but can he stay healthy? That's a big question mark for the Bengals at that wide receiver spot this year. So I want to hear from you guys. Pick a wide receiver. Who's your favorite guy out of the two here? Who would you trust more to go on the field as that, solid wide receiver for you next year? Let me know what you guys think. Type JB for Jermaine Burton or type CJ for Charlie Jones.